My name is Amelia Hayes. I am 32 years old, and my life, until recently, has been a quiet study in muted colors, like the persistent gray skies of Oak Haven, the city I call home. I am an architectural designer, or at least I was, at Viridian Designs, one of the most respected firms in the Pacific Northwest. My father was a luthier, a man who believed that the soul of a thing, be it a violin or a person, was found not in its grand pronouncements, but in the integrity of its smallest, most hidden joints. He spent his life coaxing music from wood, his workshop smelling of spruce and rosewood, a scent that still feels more like home to me than any place I have ever lived. He lost that workshop, and a part of himself, when a business partner with a silver tongue and hollow ethics cheated him, leaving him with nothing but broken contracts and the ghost of a handshake. My father, a man of quiet honor, had no proof. He had only his word, and he learned, too late, that in a world of noise, a quiet word is easily drowned out. That lesson settled deep in my bones, a quiet, inherited grief that shaped the woman I would become. It was this inherited caution, this profound understanding of the fragility of trust, that led me to where I am now, sitting in a glass-walled conference room on the 12th floor of the Elwood Tower. The room was designed to inspire awe, with a panoramic view of Oak Haven's steel and glass heart giving way to the dark green Cascade Mountains in the distance. But that morning, the glass felt less like a window and more like a cage. The air, chilled by an overzealous climate control system, prickled my skin. The projected timelines simply don't align with the final delivery schedules, Amelia, said Julian Croft, my director, his voice a carefully modulated baritone that he wielded like a surgical instrument. He slid a glossy report across the vast, sterile table. We've looked at the past 3 quarters. The pattern is undeniable. Beside him, Evelyn Reed from Human Resources offered a look of practiced sympathy, a mask that didn't quite fit her sharp features. We have to consider the firm's integrity and the trust of our clients. This data suggests a consistent misrepresentation of your project progress. I looked down at the termination agreement they had placed before me. The crisp white paper seemed to hum with a malevolent energy. 7 years. 7 years I had poured into this firm, sketching until my fingers ached, rendering models late into the night while the city slept, believing that my work, its quality and its truth, would speak for itself. I had missed weddings, birthdays, the slow, quiet fading of my own father, all in service to a dream I thought we shared. If you sign this today, we can offer a severance package of 1 month's salary, Evelyn said, her tone suggesting this was an act of profound generosity. It will allow everyone to move forward without any unpleasantness. The silence that followed was broken only by the faint whisper of the vents. Julian's silver pen tapped a soft, rhythmic beat against the table, a countdown to my professional demise. I felt the familiar tightening in my chest, the cold knot of panic that had visited me so often in the past year, a feeling of being gas-meddled, of my own reality being questioned. But then I thought of my father's hands, calloused and gentle, holding a piece of maple, searching for its voice. He had taught me that integrity wasn't a grand gesture, but 1,000 small, honest choices. And I had made them. Every day. I took a slow, deep breath, letting it fill me, and felt the panic recede, replaced by a quiet, unshakable calm. I even managed a small, genuine smile. Before I consider signing anything, I said, my voice softer than I expected but perfectly steady, I have something I'd like to show you. I reached into my leather satchel and pulled out not a phone, but a small, unassuming notebook bound in dark green leather, its pages filled with my neat, architectural script. The confusion on their faces was a small, satisfying crack in their composed facades. About a year ago, I began. Opening the notebook to a bookmarked page, I started noticing small discrepancies. A design element I developed would appear in a final presentation credited to someone else. A timeline I had met would be logged in the system as delayed. Julian's tapping stopped. He leaned forward slightly, his eyes narrowing. My father taught me the importance of keeping a true record, I continued, my fingers tracing the lines of my own handwriting. He called it a journeyman's log, a private account of one's own work, for one's own reference. So, for the past 7 years, I've kept one. Every sketch, every calculation, every project milestone, every email confirmation. I also started a habit of saving my completed project files to a secure personal cloud server at the end of each day, timestamped. Evelyn cleared her throat. Amelia, transferring company files to a personal server is a serious breach of our data security policy. It is, I agreed, meeting her gaze. Section 8, Paragraph B, except where such transfers constitute the creation of a personal work portfolio or performance backup, provided all proprietary client information is redacted. I spoke with Thomas in legal about it when I set it up 5 years ago. He helped me draft the redaction protocol. I turned the notebook towards them, showing them pages of meticulous entries, dates, times, and project notes. Then, I pulled a slim silver USB drive from my pocket and placed it gently on the table. This drive, I said, contains a side-by-side comparison of my personal, timestamped records and the official project files in Viridian's system for the last 12 months. The discrepancies are, as you said, Julian, undeniable. My contributions to the award-winning Millstream Library project were systematically reassigned to Liam Peterson. The efficiency rating on my work for the North Bank Tower was lowered by 30%, which disqualified me for the quarterly performance bonus. Liam, I believe, received that bonus instead. I paused. Liam, who is your nephew, Julian? And who was promoted to senior designer ahead of me 6 months ago, despite having a fraction of my experience. The color drained from Julian's face, leaving his skin looking papery and thin. Evelyn's professional mask had vanished, replaced by a wide-eyed stare. The most interesting part, I went on, my voice still quiet, is the digital forensics. The alterations to my files were always made from the same terminal, using a senior director's credentials, always between 10 p.m. and midnight on the last Thursday of each month. That's when you told your team you were staying late to review the quarterly budget projections, isn't it, Julian? The silence in the room was now absolute, heavy and suffocating. These are incredibly serious allegations, Evelyn whispered, her voice barely audible. They are facts, I corrected her gently. And they don't just concern me. I spoke with Clara from the interiors team and Sophia from landscape architecture. They've experienced similar performance issues since Liam's promotion. It seems a pattern of talented women being methodically undervalued began around the same time. I pushed the USB drive a little further across the table. Everything is on there. The file comparisons, the server logs, the IP address traces. I sent a password-protected copy to Eris Thorne's executive assistant 30 minutes before this meeting, with a note to open it if she hadn't heard from me by 10 a.m. I also sent one to my personal attorney. I leaned back in my chair, the tension finally leaving my shoulders. I didn't walk in here expecting to be fired, Julian. I walked in here to see if the company my father always admired, the one whose name is on half the buildings in this city, still valued the integrity he taught me to live by. The next few hours were a surreal ballet of hushed phone calls and grim-faced executives. Eris Thorne, the firm's founding partner and a living legend in the world of architecture, appeared in person, her silver hair pulled back in an elegant chignon, her eyes sharp and missing nothing. She dismissed Julian and Evelyn from the room with a flick of her wrist, her expression unreadable. She and I sat with 2 lawyers from the firm's general counsel, going through my evidence piece by piece. I answered their questions calmly, walking them through the logbook and the digital files. I spoke not with anger, but with a deep, aching sadness for what had been broken. The trust, the shared sense of purpose, the belief that good work was enough. "Why didn't you come forward sooner, Ms. Hayes?" one of the lawyers asked, his pen poised over a legal pad. I looked at Eris Thorne, a woman who had shattered glass ceilings before the term was even coined. Because for a long time, I believed them, I confessed, the words tasting like ash. I believed I wasn't good enough, that I was misremembering, that I was failing. Julian is an expert at making you question your own reality. It took me months to trust my own records over his words. Eris listened, her gaze never leaving my face. When the lawyers were finished, she asked them to leave us. For a long moment, she was silent, looking out the window at the city she had helped to build. My father was a stonemason, she said finally, her voice softer now. He taught me that a foundation is everything. If the foundation is compromised, the most beautiful structure will eventually collapse. She turned back to me. It seems the foundation of this firm has been compromised. By rot I allowed to grow in the dark. That night, I didn't go home to my quiet apartment. Instead, I drove out to the coast. I stood on the cold, damp sand of Cannon Beach, watching the fog swirl around Haystack Rock, the air thick with the smell of salt and rain. The anger and adrenaline of the day had faded, leaving behind a profound emptiness. I hadn't felt the thrill of victory, only the deep, hollow ache of a battle I should never have had to fight. My phone buzzed in my pocket with texts from curious colleagues, but I ignored them. This moment of quiet sorrow was mine alone. I had one, but I felt a grief for the naive young woman who had walked into Viridian Designs 7 years ago, believing that architecture was a meritocracy and that truth was a self-evident force. She was gone, and I wasn't sure yet who would take her place. The following Monday, I was summoned back to the Elwood Tower. A security guard met me in the lobby, but instead of showing me the door, he escorted me to the top floor, to Eris Thorne's personal office. It was nothing like the cold, impersonal conference room. It was filled with light, books, and sprawling architectural models. The walls were covered not with awards, but with original sketches and renderings, a history of the firm in pencil and ink. Eris gestured to a worn leather armchair across from her desk. "Amelia," she said, getting straight to the point. "I have spent the weekend reviewing everything. Your work is exceptional. What was done to you, and to the others, is a betrayal of everything this firm is supposed to stand for." I waited, unsure of what was coming. "Julian Croft and Liam Peterson have been dismissed, effective immediately," she stated. "Evelyn Reed has been placed on administrative leave, pending a full review of HR's complicity in these matters." She slid a thick file folder across her expansive oak desk. "This is our proposal to begin making amends." I opened it. It contained an offer for the position of Director of Design Integrity, a new role. It included full back pay for the bonuses I had been denied, a significant salary increase, and a mandate to create a new, transparent system for tracking project contributions and performance metrics. I looked at her, my brows furrowed. Why not just write me a large check and have me sign a non-disclosure agreement? It would be easier, less disruptive. A wry smile touched Eris's lips. "Because that's the easy way, not the right way. Covering up a problem doesn't solve it. It just buries the rot deeper. I don't want you to leave, Amelia. I want you to stay and help me fix the foundation." She leaned forward, her eyes intense. "You have the skills, the integrity, and most importantly, the first-hand knowledge of how the system can be corrupted. I need you." I thought of my father, his quiet strength, his unwavering belief in doing the work right, even when no one was watching. I thought of the other women, Clara and Sophia, who had been made to doubt their own talent. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about restoration. "And the others?" I asked. "The other designers who were affected?" "They will receive compensation for what they lost," Eris assured me. "And I want you to be the one to help design a structure that protects them and everyone else from now on." Looking at the offer, at the chance to build something new and true from the wreckage of the old, I realized this wasn't an ending. It was a beginning. A much more difficult and much more meaningful one. "I have some ideas," I said, pulling my green notebook from my satchel. "It starts with transparency. and a digital journeyman's log for everyone. Eris Thorne's smile was genuine this time, and it was like the sun breaking through the Oakhaven clouds. I had a feeling you would. The months that followed were a whirlwind of focused, exhausting work. I moved into a corner office with a view of the river, a space that felt both foreign and strangely fitting. With a small, dedicated team, I began the meticulous process of designing and implementing what we called the Viridian Blueprint. It was a new digital platform where every contribution to a project, from a preliminary sketch to a complex structural calculation, was logged, time-stamped, and attributed in a transparent, unalterable ledger. It wasn't about surveillance. It was about celebration, about creating a visible tapestry of collaborative creation where every thread was honored. We uncovered 4 other instances of Julian's manipulation, all targeting talented women, all resulting in lost bonuses and stalled careers. Each discovery felt like excavating a wound. One afternoon, Clara, a brilliant interior designer with a gift for color and light, stopped by my office. Her eyes were bright with tears I couldn't quite decipher. "I got my back pay today," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "For 2 years of underperformance bonuses. I almost quit last year, Amelia. I was looking at jobs in marketing. I thought I had lost my touch, that I wasn't good enough for this world anymore." "I know that feeling," I said softly. "It's the most insidious part of the deception. It makes you complicit in your own diminishment. How did you hold on to yourself? How did you find the strength to fight?" she asked. I thought for a moment, looking at a small, framed photo on my desk. It was of my father in his workshop, smiling, a fine layer of sawdust dusting his hair and eyebrows. "I was raised to believe that the truth of a thing is in its construction," I said. "I just applied that to my own life. I documented the work. And I refused to let someone else's lie become my truth." Clara nodded, wiping a tear from her cheek. "Well, you didn't just save yourself. You saved some of us, too." "Thank you." Her words were a balm. The real victory wasn't in Julian's downfall, but in Clara's renewed confidence, in the restoration of her belief in her own talent. Justice, I was learning, wasn't a single act of retribution. It was the patient, ongoing work of building something better in the place of what was broken. But not everyone saw it that way. The new transparency of the blueprint system made many uncomfortable. There was no longer any room to hide in the shadows of a team project, no way to claim credit for a colleague's insight. The old boys club, which had thrived on quiet handshakes and backroom agreements, was being flooded with light. One morning, in the model-making workshop, I was confronted by Marcus, a senior architect who had been a close friend of Julian's. "This new system of yours," he said, his voice a low growl, gesturing around the workshop. "It's antiseptic. It strips the art out of collaboration, turns it into a ledger sheet. Some of us preferred the old way of doing things. The old way allowed for theft of intellectual property and systemic discrimination," I replied, keeping my voice even. "The blueprint ensures that credit goes where it is due. Nothing more, nothing less." "You've made a lot of waves, Amelia," he said, stepping closer. "You think you're a reformer, but a lot of people see you as a wrecking ball. You should watch your back." His words were a cold reminder that when you challenge a power structure, it doesn't just surrender. It fights back. And it did. 3 months later, we were in the final stages of a major pitch for the new Oakhaven Community Library, a project I had poured my heart into. It was more than a building. It was a chance to create a sanctuary of learning and connection for the city. The night before the final presentation to the city council, I worked late, perfecting the digital walkthrough and ensuring every detail was flawless. When I arrived the next morning, the presentation file was corrupt. Key renderings were gone, the budget analysis was scrambled, and the entire file was inaccessible. Panic, cold and sharp, seized me. The presentation was in 3 hours. There was no time to rebuild it from scratch. Then, I remembered. The blueprint. It didn't just log contributions. It logged every access, every change, from every terminal. A frantic call to my IT team confirmed it. The file had been accessed at 2:17 a.m. from a terminal in the main design studio, Marcus's terminal. A malicious code had been inserted, designed to corrupt the file upon opening. But the blueprint had also created a shadow backup 30 seconds before the corrupting code was introduced. When Marcus walked in at 8:45 a.m., looking smug, he found me, Eris Thorne, and the head of IT waiting for him in his office. There was no need for a long conversation. The evidence was absolute, time-stamped, and irrefutable. As security escorted him out, his composure finally broke. "This isn't over," he snarled, his face contorted with rage. "You think you've won, but you've just painted a target on your back." We managed to restore the presentation with an hour to spare. We won the library contract, but Marcus's threat lingered in the air. That night, Eris called me. "He wasn't just venting," she said, her voice weary. "Marcus has friends at rival firms. They're starting to whisper to our clients, spreading rumors that Viridian is unstable, that our leadership is in turmoil." My stomach sank. "I never wanted to harm the firm." "You didn't," Eris said firmly. "You exposed a sickness that was already here. But now we have to endure the treatment. It will be difficult." The next 6 months were the most challenging of my life. We lost 2 major clients, spooked by the rumors. A board member, a longtime ally of Julian's, resigned in protest of what he called a culture of internal policing. I was plagued by doubt. Had my personal quest for justice inadvertently put the livelihoods of my colleagues at risk? Was my father's lesson about integrity incomplete? Perhaps, in the real world, it had to be tempered with a pragmatism I lacked. I was working late one rainy Tuesday, staring at a spreadsheet of declining quarterly revenues, when Sophia, the landscape architect, knocked on my open door. "I heard we lost the Sterling account," she said, her expression gentle. I nodded, feeling the weight of it in my bones. "I thought you might want to see this," she said, handing me a folder. It was a report on new client acquisitions. While we had lost established corporate clients, we had gained a dozen smaller, more progressive ones, nonprofits, community-focused developers, and a major commission from an all-woman investment group. "Word is getting out," Sophia explained. "About what you did. About the blueprint. They're not coming to us in spite of the instability. They're coming to us because of it. They see a firm that's willing to tear itself apart and rebuild on a foundation of ethics. They trust us." That conversation was a turning point. I stopped seeing the pushback as a sign of my failure and started seeing it as a sign of profound, necessary change. We weren't just losing clients. We were trading the old guard for a new one. We were building a different kind of company, one that attracted a different kind of partner. The final ghost of the old Viridian appeared 9 months after his dismissal. Julian Croft filed a lawsuit against the firm and against me personally for defamation and wrongful termination. He claimed I had fabricated a complex conspiracy to ruin his career out of professional jealousy. He was seeking $5 million in damages. When I read the legal filing, a strange sense of peace washed over me. It was his last, desperate attempt to control the narrative, to paint himself as the victim. The deposition was grueling. His lawyers were sharks, circling, trying to portray me as a vindictive, unstable woman. They questioned my motives, my methods, my relationship with my father. During one session, with Julian sitting across the table, his lawyer pressed me on why I had started my logbook in the first place. I looked past the lawyer, directly at Julian. "My father was a luthier," I said, my voice quiet but carrying in the silent room. "He taught me that you can't force a piece of wood to become something it isn't. You have to listen to it, to respect its grain, its truth." When his business was stolen from him, the part that broke him wasn't the money. It was the violation of that truth. I held Julian's gaze. "I keep a log because my father taught me to respect the truth of my own work. I do it to honor the grain, not to fight the forest. I never expected to need it as a weapon." I kept it as a map to remind myself of where I'd been and what I had built with my own two hands. There was a long silence. Julian looked away first. 2 weeks later, he dropped the lawsuit. Last year, Eris Thorne nominated me to the firm's board of directors. My first act was to propose that we publish an annual integrity report alongside our financial statements, making our blueprint data and diversity metrics public. After a long and heated debate, the proposal passed. We became the first firm in our industry to do so. The response was transformative. We are now sought out by clients and top-tier talent, not just for our designs, but for our culture. The thing my father lost, his reputation for quiet integrity, has become our firm's most valuable asset. A few nights ago, I received an email from a young woman, an engineer at a tech firm in California. She had found our integrity report online. "I think what happened to you is happening to me," she wrote. "I don't know what to do. I feel like I'm going crazy." I called her. I spent an hour on the phone, listening, and then I walked her through it. How to create a log. How to back up her work. How to build a foundation of facts so strong that no one could tear it down. As I spoke, I realized the full circle of it all. The battle I fought for myself had become a blueprint for others. The revenge wasn't the moment Julian's world crumbled. It was the moment this young woman started to rebuild her own. It was in the slow, patient, and deeply satisfying work of helping others find the strength to trust their own voice, to honor their own work, and to demand the truth. It was the quiet, enduring music that came from a structure built with integrity from the foundation up.